U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen begins her three-day trip to South Korea. The visiting official meets President Yoon Suk-yeol as well as top economic leaders. Over in Tokyo, South Korea's top diplomat hosts talks with Japan's PM. He relayed President Yoon's strong will to revamp bilateral ties. South Korea's first supersonic fighter completes its first test flight. The KF-21 will go through 2,000 more before manufacturing begins. Hello and welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Chen. Let's begin with our top story. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen is in Seoul. She paid a visit to the nation's top office where President Yoon asked Washington to work with South Korea to stabilize the foreign exchange market. Choi Min-jung starts us off.
South Korea and the United States have agreed to cooperate in stabilizing the foreign exchange market. The decision came after the country's Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho and U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen met in Seoul on Tuesday to discuss key economic issues. The two also agreed to inject liquidity if deemed necessary. Pundits say this opens the door for a potential currency swap between Seoul and Washington. Chu and Yellen did, however, note that South Korea's foreign currency liquidity is still stable. Seoul also said it plans to get on board with Washington-led plans to impose a price cap on Russian oil. Yellen has been seeking support from her counterparts to back the plan to reduce funds flowing into Moscow. Chu emphasized that the measure should be effectively designed to stabilize international oil and consumer prices. The decisions come after President Yoon Suk-yeol held talks with the U.S. Treasury Chief at the presidential office and asked the U.S. to cooperate in stabilizing the currencies of the two countries. Rising inflation, energy prices, and supply chain issues were also discussed.
그리고 앞으로 이런 복합적인 다양한 위기가 지금 전 세계를 엄습하고 있는 가운데 한미 간의 이런 포괄적 전략 동맹이 정치 군사 안보에서 또 산업 기술 안보에서 나아가 경제 금융 안보 동맹으로서 더욱 튼튼하게 이어지기를 저도 기대하고.
During talks with the governor of the Bank of Korea, Ms. Yellen said she looks forward to expanding the partnership between the two countries. Yellen also visited an LG Chem battery facility where she highlighted the importance of friendshoring. This involves deepening relationships and diversifying supply chains with trusted economic allies. It's a move aimed at tackling inflationary pressure and supply chain disruptions and preventing countries like China from dominating key technological industries.
We cannot allow countries like China to use their market position in key raw materials, technologies, or products to disrupt our economy or exercise unwanted geopolitical leverage.
Yellen arrived in Seoul on Tuesday for a three-day trip to South Korea as part of her first Indo-Pacific tour as Treasury Secretary. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Over in Tokyo, South Korea's foreign minister met with Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. Park Jin reportedly expressed President Yoon's strong determination to improve bilateral relations. Kim Dami shares with us what was discussed.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida is a reliable partner, according to South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, with whom he can work together to develop friendly and cooperative bilateral relations. Seoul's top diplomat Park Jin delivered this message from the South Korean leader to his Japanese counterpart on Tuesday. He said Kishida listened carefully to Yoon's message and voiced hope of continuing to have good talks with him like they did at the NATO summit in Spain. In the message, Yoon also expressed his condolences over the death of Japan's late former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. Topping the talks between Park and Kishida were pending issues between the two countries, namely the issue of compensation for the Koreans Japan subjected to wartime forced labor. Park pledged to what he could do so that there are desirable solutions before the assets of related Japanese firms are liquidated. Regarding the 2015 agreement on the issue of the Korean women subjected to sexual slavery by Japan, the so-called comfort women, he said the South Korean government regards the deal as official and expects the issue to be resolved in accordance with the spirit of the agreement. According to the South Korean foreign minister, Kishida said nothing but listen. Though no details are settled yet, Bak said he is hopeful that there will be a summit between the leaders of the two countries once there have been solutions outlined to various issues. Also on Tuesday, Bak and Kishida agreed to closely cooperate on revitalizing people-to-people exchanges, like the recent resumption of flights between Gimpo and Haneda airports. Kim Da-mi, Arirang News.
South Korea's first supersonic fighter jet successfully completed its test flight, but this is just a beginning as it will be put through 2,000 more until it's ready for manufacturing. Bae Eun-ji has the full story.
South Korea's newly developed 4.5 generation fighter, the KF-21, roars into the air for its first test flight. It took off at 3:40 p.m. from Sacheon Airport, located in the south of the country, and flew for around 30 minutes at 400 kilometers per hour. Tuesday's flight came more than 20 years after the country officially announced that it'll develop its own advanced fighter jet, and 6 years after actual development began by Korea Aircraft Industries, or KAI, in 2015. With that, South Korea is edging closer to becoming the 8th country in the world to have developed its own supersonic fighter jet. So far, countries including the US, Russia, China, Japan, France, Sweden, and the European consortium comprised of UK, Germany, Italy, and Spain have developed such aircraft. For the next 4 years, more prototypes will be put test flown.
Until 2026, we will test the aircraft by putting prototypes through around 2,000 flights. Manufacturing will begin from 2026, and a total of 120 aircraft will be given to the South Korean Air Force by 2032.
Developing the KF-21 is a key part of South Korea's project that's aimed at replacing its fleet of aging F-4s and F-5s. It was developed to fly at a top speed of 1.8 times the speed of sound, and is capable of carrying 4 medium-range air-to-air missiles called a Meteor that has a combat range of 200 kilometers and can fly at Mach 4.5. Bae Eun-ji, Arirang News.
Visitors who want to check out the DMZ, which divides the two Koreas, can finally book tours again to the truce village of Panmunjom. They've been suspended for months in the last wave of COVID-19. Members of the press got an exclusive first look. Han Sung-woo provides a sneak peek.
Panmunjom, a symbol of the Korean War, a divided Korean peninsula, and decades of efforts to achieve peace. On Tuesday, United Nations Command, in cooperation with South Korea's Unification Ministry, reopened Panmunjom to the press, just 1 week after public tours to the joint security area resumed for the first time in half a year. COVID-19 had forced the closure of the inter-Korean truce village to the public since January 18th, but tours can now be booked again on the website of the Panmunjom Tourist Support Center. Tours are held once a day, 4 days a week, on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, with a limit of 40 visitors per session. On a clear day, from Panmunjom's guard posts, the Kaesong Industrial Complex can be seen on the other side, and also North Korean troops walking through Kijeongdong village. On Tuesday's media tour, no North Korean personnel were seen outdoors at the JSA. An international political and military affairs officer with the UN command attributes that to Pyongyang's precautions against COVID-19. But at least one North Korean soldier was seen inside the main building on the other side, taking photos of the media delegation. By giving tours of Panmunjom, UN command aims to raise public awareness of the security conditions on the Korean peninsula and educate visitors about the terms of the Korean armistice that underpin peace and stability. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
The number of defectors to South Korea dropped to fewer than 100 last year. 63 North Koreans crossed over, 40 male and 23 female. A sharp on-year decline. In 2020, there were 220. In 2019, before the pandemic, there were 1,047. The Unification Ministry attributed the latest dip to the strict border controls put in place between North Korea and China to control the virus. In H1, there were 19 defections, a further on-year decline of 47%. Elsewhere around the world, fighting continues in the eastern Donbas region. Ukraine claims Russian troops failed to advance towards the city of Avdiyivka after several days of fighting. The head of the local military added Moscow suffered heavy losses with 40 casualties, while Ukraine forces lost 4 soldiers. According to the UK's defense ministry, Russia struggled to sustain its offensive since the start of the invasion, and the problem was likely to become evident. Tuesday marks the 146th day of Moscow's invasion. Sang-hyeok clinched silver in the World Athletics Championships men's high jump. It's the first and highest medal for a South Korean athlete at the event in the track and field category. On Monday local time in Oregon, Woo managed to clear 2.35 meters. Defending champion and Tokyo Olympic gold medalist Mutaz Essa Barshim from Qatar won gold by 2 centimeters. At the World Championships as a whole in the outdoor events, this is the second medal for a South Korean. President Yoon Suk-yeol sent a congratulatory message to Woo Sang-hyeok saying he has written a new chapter in South Korea's athletics history. The Asian Games, postponed due to the pandemic, will be held next fall. The governing Olympic Council of Asia announced it will be held in 2023 from September 23rd to October 8th. The multi-sports event takes place in Hangzhou, China. Organizers decided to postpone the Games in May due to a COVID-19 resurgence in the country. South Korea is seeing a sharp increase in new infections as the country contends with a new wave. The BA.5 strain, which appears to better escape immunity, is becoming dominant. Kim Ji-yeon brings the updates.
The number of new daily coronavirus infections in South Korea rose sharply on Tuesday to surpass 73,582 as the highly transmissible Omicron subvariant, the BA.5, spreads. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, that's 4 times more compared to 2 weeks ago. Authorities warned that the country has entered a new wave and the number of new infections could climb by more than 200,000 next month. Despite the sharp uptick, authorities said the number of deaths and those critically ill, which are key in determining the nature of the outbreak, are still manageable, meaning it won't put a heavy toll on the nation's medical treatment system for now. There are 12 more deaths, putting the fatality rate at 0.13%.
Due to the new BA.5 strain, the outbreak has resurfaced faster than expected. The public's participation in getting vaccinated is imperative in curbing infections, hospitalizations, and related deaths.
The BA.5 strain evades immunity more easily compared to earlier Omicron versions and is highly likely to become the dominant strain in Korea as early as this week. The KDCA said there's a 47.2% chance that the confirmed cases during the week leading up to last Saturday tested positive for the strain. In response, the government is advising 4th coronavirus vaccine shots for people aged 50 and older, as well as people aged 18 and older who have underlying health conditions. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Smartphone sales around the world declined in Q2, but Samsung retained the biggest share of the global market. According to Canalys, it rose 3 percentage points on year to 21%. Even though global smartphone shipments declined 9% due to economic uncertainties, the Korean tech giant maintained its dominance thanks mainly to strong sales of lower-end Galaxy A series. Apple was runner-up at 17% with an increase of 3 percentage points. Xiaomi, Oppo, and Vivo all saw declines. South Korea plans to nurture some 150,000 semiconductor experts in the next decade. Part of the measures include easing regulations on universities to add new programs related to the field. Lee Kyung-eun has the details.
South Korea will nurture some 150,000 semiconductor experts over the next 10 years. Education Minister Park Sun-hye on Tuesday announced a set of semiconductor workforce cultivation plans together with the finance, science, and other government ministries to tackle the manpower shortages facing domestic chip makers.
We will break away from the outdated regulations and support self-innovation and growth for universities and industries. Based on this ultimate idea, we lay out the plans to nurture semiconductor talents.
At the center of the plan is the easing of admission quotas and regulations at universities to either newly open or expand semiconductor-related departments. This is projected to nurture some 50,000 experts. The other 100,000 will come from special semiconductor academies run by related ministries. Also, to tackle teaching shortages, qualification requirements for the sector will be relaxed. And some 20 graduate schools will be designated as ones that specialize in semiconductors. A major R&D drive is also underway. So 1.4 trillion Korean won, around $1.1 billion in funding, will be injected into chip making by 2029. Also, to promote equal opportunities nationwide, the government will push for the passing of a bill aimed at setting up national universities and promoting an educational and research environment for the high-tech industry outside the capital region. Young-eun, Arirang News.
The number of South Korean unicorn startups, meaning ones worth more than $1 billion, has risen to 12 as of this April, which is 4 times the number in 2017. This is according to the report Emerging Giants in Asia Pacific released on Monday by KPMG and HSBC, looking at more than 6,400 tech startups across the region. South Korean companies on the list include fintech company Viva Republica and premium online grocery retailer Market Curly. The report also identified the top 100 companies most likely to emerge as unicorns, including 3 Korean startups: agricultural trading platform Tridge, the autonomous mobility as a service company 42Dot, and Tucson Robotics. There are 450 unicorn startups in the Asia Pacific region, up 25% on year. Mosquitoes. There are plenty of them in the city since they find lots of water to breed in. A local research institute has come up with ways to reduce their numbers, and it's environmentally friendly. Kim Jong-sil sheds light on the measures.
One of the least welcome guests in the summer months that bothers people day and night. The mosquitoes. If only there was a simple way to curb their numbers. We went out to hear what people had to say about this tiny summer party crusher.
When I go to a mountain, black mosquitoes bite me unless I move around constantly. They bite so much it hurts. When I come home, I feel so itchy I have to wash the bite marks off with water.
I get bitten all the time, so I prepare repellent and stuff like that more than other people. I have it in my house, and I also use a mosquito net.
But there may be a solution on the horizon, as one research institute in Seoul says they have found a way to control the number of mosquitoes that's better than using chemicals. The institute says it paid particular attention to the fact that mosquitoes can pass through spaces as small as 2 millimeters.
Since Seoul is a large city, we paid attention to damp, humid places around residential areas, and sewer manholes and ventilation pipes for septic tanks came up as prime suspects.
Manholes or septic tank ventilation pipes provide the perfect warm and damp conditions for female mosquitoes to lay their eggs. These places are also filled with germs that are potentially dangerous to humans. The research institute says using rubber like this or nets like these can fill gaps so that fewer mosquitoes can escape from sewers. Another advantage, they're cheaper than using chemicals.
The rubber seal and the nets cost somewhere between 3,000 to 10,000 Korean won, which is roughly $2 to $8. The chemical that each district office in Seoul uses can cost up to 150 million Korean won, or roughly $110,000 per year. So how do we actually use these nets and rubber seals? First, the manhole lid needs to be opened. Then, the rubber seal should be placed to fill gaps before the lid is closed again. Also, on septic tank ventilation pipes, the exposed end of the pipe can be covered with a very fine net. This way, mosquitoes are unable to escape. The institute tried its method at 400 buildings within a 1-kilometer radius of the Sangam-dong neighborhood in Mapogu district. It said 220,000 mosquitoes, or about 48.9%, were kept under control simply by closing or covering gaps. The researchers said they will now recommend these methods for areas in Seoul that have the largest mosquito populations. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
Busan is bidding to host the 2030 World Expo. Helping the city are BTS members. The bidding committee officially appointed the K-pop band as ambassadors. BTS will hold a global concert in the port city, deliver presentations at the General Assembly of the BIE, the organization that chooses to host, and guide officials during on-site inspections. Other contenders to host the World Expo are Rome, Italy, and Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The selection will be made late next year. K-pop and many other Korean cultural items continue to garner greater global attention and love these days. Despite the growing appeal, there's not been a Korean Disney character yet. Song Yoo-jin caught up with an artist who's trying to change that.
There was no Korean Disney princess, so I decided to make my own.
The fish in the sea can't stop me. All of the waves in the world can't rock me.
With the snap of a finger, a Disney-style character wearing a Korean traditional hanbok pops out and sings. It's the work of Julia Ryu, a Korean-American composer and writer. Back in January, the 22-year-old uploaded this clip of her singing a tune from her original musical, Simcheong, to social media. Based on the Korean folktale Simcheongjeon, it shows the journey of Simcheong, who finds herself in a magical kingdom after diving into the sea to save her blind father. The video has garnered over 1 million views in less than a month. Then, how did this all start? I got a chance to speak with Julia Ryu during her visit to Korea last week. Growing up in Missouri, Ryu saw herself more as a sidekick than a main character, as she barely saw Koreans on screen or on stage. But she wanted this to change.
And so I think wanting to contribute to that feeling for the next generation of kids, to be able to see themselves in something as widespread as Disney, as celebrated and uplifting and well-known as Disney, I think would not only help those kids be able to see themselves as a lead character, but also would help other people to be able to see us, Koreans, as lead characters as well.
The opportunity came when she decided to unite her root culture with musical theater for her senior thesis project at Harvard, where she studied theater, dance, media, and music. But why Simcheong in particular?
So I think the reason that I first connected with the folktale originally is that it is this story about a young woman who is looking to return home and to reconnect with her family. And at the time that I first started writing Simcheong, I was, I think, harboring a deep question, and really since I was young, of who am I, where do I belong?
After her video went viral, Ryu was showered with messages from the Korean and Korean-American community, saying they felt the same way growing up and hope to see a Korean Disney princess soon. But she dreams big.
My ultimate dream is to be able to help contribute to a movement of cultural understanding and diversity and empathy in the theater, music, and film space.
To help make her dream become reality, Ryu will soon move to New York, the heart of the entertainment industry, to work on more productions, which of course includes continuing to develop Simcheong. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Expect sweltering conditions to continue for tomorrow. Daytime highs will hover around 30 degrees Celsius for most regions, including Seoul. Southern regions will see hotter spells, and places like Daegu will see maximum temperatures hiking up to 33 degrees. On Thursday, the entire nation, excluding the capital, will see another round of monsoon rain. Strong UV rays will once again dominate tomorrow. Most regions will see UV ray index in the high to very high range. But for parts of Jeollanam-do province and the south coast, UV ray index will stand in the extreme range, which is the highest of all levels. By the afternoon, ozone concentration levels will also rise. An increase in ozone levels can cause various respiratory problems, so please take extra precautions. Morning lows in Seoul and Busan will be kicking off at 24 degrees Celsius. Expect partly cloudy to overcast skies for the daytime. Daejeon and Gwangju will reach 32 degrees. Daegu and Gyeongju will make 33 degrees. The entire nation is forecast to see more monsoon showers this coming weekend. That's all for now, and enter the weather conditions around the world.
And that's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.